trust. It's an evil game, but that's what happens, right? Without trust, if I present a mission and vision, this is where we want to go. If you don't trust me, you're not hearing you. And you certainly aren't going to buy in, and therefore, you're not going to be able to, you're not going to really get on board and start moving in the direction that everyone wants us to move. Right? So there's some data on trust, and based on the research, there's emerging, and the emerging client. Companies now are starting to quantify, put a cost to trust, right? Trust, again, is an evil game, and if you think through it, you can kind of make sense of some of these stats. So there's a Watson-Wyatt study. They showed that high trust companies outperform low trust companies by nearly 300%. Is that shocking to anyone? I mean, high trust company, it shouldn't be shocking if there's a lot of trust that they're going to outperform a low trust organization. True? You guys agree? Only 51% of employees have trust and confidence in senior management. What's the rule there? I'd have to look at the details and post in this article. We see some of this similar data in our AES results, right? They're not the exact same numbers, but we see some similar trends. When trust is low in a company, or take that outside of an organizational sense, in a relationship, it places a hidden tax on every interaction, every transaction. So think about that for a minute. Let's talk about a scenario where there might be low trust. And we've all experienced this, whether it be here or in other companies. My first IT job was at a large insurance company. We couldn't make decisions unless 100 people were in the room. How often do you think we could get all 100 people in the room at the same time to make that decision? Never. So we never got things done. Because, well, if I ask Abba, well, I got to go ask Mark because Abba's in the room, and Mark, is Abba's supervisor. And then, well, Mark's supervisors, and whomever else, and I got to have them in the room, right? So we got to start bringing other people in the room. If you put a dollar amount on every one of our salaries, and you have 30 people in the room, that's an expensive meeting just to make a decision. It's an example of low trust because I don't trust Abba to make that decision, so I've got to have Abba supervisor. I've got to have a supervisor, et cetera, right? And this department is linked to this department, so I got to have people from that department in the room too. So again, putting a dollar amount on that, they're starting to equate it in that way. It's astounding to think about, and I'm sure as you guys hear that, you can think about some interactions or exchanges that we have in our organization that might mimic that to some degree. Maybe not, that's an exaggeration, the one I gave, but probably not a huge exaggeration in some cases. So what I want you guys to do, we talked about servant leadership definition, we talked about some traits, we talked about some of the principles that are applied to those traits, right? So one statement, this is a private thing, you can do it on your own. I want to do a little experiment, write one thing down that you're awesome at, so think about those traits, I'll go back to the slide, things that you're awesome at, and then things maybe you need some work on. Right? So for me, maybe for example, I'm a terrible listener, so I might write that down.
Humility. I'm not going to speak.
We would have asked him right there and we would have
Yes.
I'm a crazy right for opportunity.
All right. You don't have a brain aneurysm over this COVID thing. This is a private internal conversation for you, but writing it down helps. I think it helps you think through that a little bit differently. Again, those are the traits of servant leadership, and I would say, as I started off, that we're all leaders within our community, families, maybe we're organizational leaders, aspiring leaders, but we're certainly leaders within our teams. So think about those things, and then what you're good at and what you need to work on. So, with that exercise, real quick, you can challenge yourself to do a little experiment. I mean, we're experimenting all the time, right? We're experimenting with processes, some tools. How many of us experiment in our personal lives? And those of you who have children, that's an experiment every day, right? What worked yesterday for my son probably isn't going to work tomorrow, right? He's growing, he's got different perspective each and every day, he's got different influences each and every day. So just even organizationally, those things change all the time. So we're doing little experiments here and there. They may not be deliberate, but they're experiments if you break it down. What about our leadership behaviors? Are we experimenting with those? How about our interactions with colleagues? If our interactions with our teammates or other organizational team members, if it's not going well, do we keep doing the same thing? If we're being honest, some of us would say, yeah, we keep going at it the same approach and we're just butting heads. But do we experiment and try a different approach, just like we would with our children? Not that we're children, but we once were, I think. What about your professional growth? And so the reason I asked you to write this little exercise is to do a little experiment with your own personal growth. So here's some tools, real quick. I'll go through. I'm a math guy, science guy. That's kind of my background. And I believe in good scientific rules. And when you build an experiment, just don't do things haphazardly, right? Those oftentimes, you get lucky sometimes, but have a plan. So have a theory or a hypothesis. Make a prediction of what might happen as a result of something that needs to change. So you start with a problem. Here's my problem. Here's what my plan is to solve said problem. And so that's my prediction. By doing this, this will happen. I hope to happen. And then experiment. Run your experiment. And then observation. That's collecting data and saying, is this moving to the right? Is it moving to the left? No improvement, whatever, right? The worst thing you can do is change 10 things at the same time, because then you have no idea which one made you move left or right. So be very deliberate in what that experiment is. So anyone thinking retrospective, if you identify 10 problems, don't change all 10. Change 1 or 2, right? Isolate it. We talked about trust in this session. Jürgen Appelo has, if you go to management30.com, I think it's the website.
Yep.
All this tool is out there, but they've got this delegation tool. And what this does is shows empowerment of the team. Here are some tasks, and here's levels of empowerment. So moving to a more self-organized team by giving more responsibility to the team. Right? He gave some examples when he talked about, and it really gives you an idea how much you trust one another by going through that exercise, and then you can, over time, move it further to the right, to be more self-organizing and empowering of the teams. But he gave examples of one team showed that, for example, they wanted to have input on salary as team members. They wanted to have input on the team's salaries, bonuses, etc. But they wanted to be told where to sit. That one seems way up here, the salaries, and he sits. Well, you should be able to, kind of weird, but it was an observation that he made with one that he did with the team. Another tool, if you have low trust in your team or organization, maybe even at home, there's these trust standards. And again, we'll make these available to you guys. This is already out on the Admin as a resource. So So you can look at that. We can help you guys facilitate these exercises if you have a feeling of trust. And then there's a ton of other leadership tools. You guys know of any other tools that you guys can employ to help build your leadership? Leadership within your teams? So here's the question. We wrote on the stickies, what behavior are you willing to experiment with to grow as a servant leader? You take the simple example that I gave you. You're having rough interactions maybe with a team member or colleague. You're expecting a different outcome. Try something different than what you've been approaching before. Or if you're not a very, you feel like you're not a very good listener, practice that. It's like a muscle. Practice. And again, that's something that can help you guys. So we talked about what is leadership. We explored personal maps. So now you have another tool in your arsenal. Further define what servant leadership is by talking about traits and principles. Talked about things that maybe you need work on, or things that you want to keep doing, right? Things that you're really good at that maybe you can help others with. And then we introduced some tools that may help in some of these things, like trust. Spend a lot of time. Answer questions.